Chapter 24. The phone rang a little after dinner as I helped Christine clear the table. Matt answered it. "Did you settle into your classes okay?" Christine asked me. I handed her the 3 dirty plates and forks. "Yeah, it's like I didn't miss anything." She turned on the sink water. "And did that certain someone notice the effort you made to look nice this morning?" What? Matt poked his head into the kitchen. "Jessica, telephone." He kept his hand over the earpiece and whispered, "It's a boy." He and Christine exchanged a smile. I took note of the weird human behavior and took the phone from him. It was my first time using a phone. I held it, as I'd seen Matt and Christine do, close to my face. "Hello?" I said, making my way over the laundry basket and plopping down on the couch in the living room. On second thought, I should help Christine with the laundry. I sat down again in front of it. "Hello?" I repeated. Was I supposed to hear something? Jessica, are you there?" The voice sounded very tiny, and I pressed the earpiece closer to my cheek. "Hello?" "Hey Jess, it's Logan. I can barely hear you." His voice came through loud and clear this time. I must not have had him close enough. "Hi," I said. "Oh, okay, it's better now. Was school all right for you today?" "Yes," I said. "I met a few more interesting people." "And an angel." I wondered how many more were wandering around De La Salle High on their correct plane, near me, but out of sight. "That's good. I didn't take very good notes in history today. Do you think you could help me study tomorrow after school?" "Sure," I said, brightening. Just the opportunity I needed. The more time I spent with Logan, the more I could guide him. "Okay, we can walk over to my house. I live by the school." "It'll be great. See you tomorrow then." Bye. I pushed the button to turn the phone off and went back to folding laundry. "Done with this?" Matt asked, stepping into the living room and picking up the phone. "Yes, thank you." "Who was the boy?" Christine appeared behind him, with her customary mug of after-dinner coffee in her hands. "Logan," I said. "He's in my history class. We're going to his house to study tomorrow." Christine had just taken a sip of coffee, and now she sputtered, spewing it out in front of her. Matt grabbed one of the rags I'd just folded and handed it to her while I looked up in concern. "Are you all right?" I asked. "I'm fine," she waved me off. "I just wondered if you were going to consult with us before going to this boy's house." I knew from the way her aura flared that I'd taken another misstep. I paused, replaying her words to analyze where I'd gone wrong. Consult to seek information or advice from someone. Oh, she wanted me to get her opinion first. "What do you think?" I said. "What do I think?" she repeated. "Yes, is it a good idea? I think I can help Logan with his history homework and maybe steer him in a better direction than the one he's going in." Matt chuckled behind her and gave her shoulder a squeeze. "Subtle nuances are lost on this one. You'll have to be blunt." "I see." Christine platted her fingers in front of her and looked at me. "Jessica, you need to ask for permission before you plan any outings, especially with boys. You're going to his house? I don't know who he is. Will his parents be there?" I nodded, understanding what I'd done wrong. "Christine, can I go to Logan's house to help him study tomorrow?" "I'm quite uncomfortable with this, if I'm being honest, Jessica. Why don't you bring him here?" "Okay, I can ask him. What if his dad says the same thing? He doesn't know you. How are human teenagers supposed to find the opportunity to interact with each other?" "Well, after an element of trust has been established between the human teen and the human parent, then the teen has a little more flexibility and freedom when asking to go somewhere." "So you are telling me I cannot go to Logan's house," I said, frowning. "I am telling you I don't feel comfortable with it." "So I can still go even if you don't feel comfortable with it?" She exchanged an exasperated look with Matt. "No, I don't want you to go." "So I can't go," I said, trying to make sure I understood her. "That's right, Jessica. You can't go. I'm your guardian. I'm responsible for you. I don't know him. And I don't think you know him well enough to make a good judgment either. You're taking away my ability to choose." She sighed. "I am making a decision for you that I am certain you would also make if you had all of the information, or at least one that you would make in my shoes if you didn't know everything." "That's what Hasatan said also," I said, understanding why human teenagers so frequently rebelled. "It doesn't matter if you have my best interest at heart. I want to make the decisions for my future. It's my life. I should make those choices. But Jessica, honey, it's not like that. You wouldn't expect a parent to let a 2-year-old walk through the street without supervision, would you? Even though the parent taking the child's hand might be infringing on her freedom to walk in the middle of the street, that little 2-year-old doesn't know better. She doesn't have the ability to make a quick decision because she doesn't know the variables. Your teenage years are like that, sweetie. We're trying to help you so that you can make those choices someday. I frowned as I considered her words. That made sense. It also explained why teenagers got to go to the academy. How could they have made all of the correct choices on Earth when they didn't know all the variables? Thus, they were given another chance, another opportunity to learn and choose. Okay, I acquiesce to your greater knowledge and experience. I will invite Logan to come over here, but I would like the opportunity to earn your trust. Matt and Christine shared another look. Sounds like a plan, Christine said. I look forward to meeting Logan. You might want to call him and let him know. Tell him I'll pick you both up. Matt held the phone out to me, but I shook my head. I don't have his number. It's stored on the phone, Matt said. He showed me how to press the buttons, so the most recent number was retrievable. That's handy. I pressed the number, and they both stood up and left while I waited for Logan to answer. Nadine, Jessica. Yes, it's me. Hey, what's up? Well, Christine doesn't feel comfortable with me going to your house, but she said it's acceptable if you come here to mine. Okay, well, Ray, don't you think that will be a bit weird to have your foster mom hanging over our shoulders? Oh, no, she's nice. You'll like her. She can pick us up after school. Well, if you're sure. Yep, see you tomorrow. Sadie. I kept my eyes open for other angels when I got to school the next day, but there were lots of people around, and there were the Temptere, adding a twisted, haunted shadow to every corner, every group of teens. Not that every cluster of teenagers was a magnet for darkness. There were several groups that carried their light around with them, which was magnified when they were together. The Temptere stayed away from them. I've been looking all over for you, elusive angel. I turned around to see her standing there, arms crossed over her chest, white blonde hair stirring from an invisible breeze. I've been looking for you too, I said, stepping closer. She cast glances around her and pressed a finger to her lips, giving me an amused look. You have not mastered the subterfuge of teenage high school yet. What's your name? I asked. You're here as a guardian? And yes, my assignment is Rachel, that girl you met yesterday. What are you doing here? You're not a guardian? I wasn't familiar enough with human emotions and responses to be compassionate as a guardian. I was sent down to live among humans so that I could understand them. She lifted one eyebrow. You say that as though you've never had the opportunity. She left it there, waiting for me to fill in the blanks. I did not. Instead, I launched into the topic that had been bothering me since yesterday. I met this girl. There is something wrong with her, but I don't know what it was. Her aura was black, and she had this Temptere wrapped around her. He was almost visible. The angel's brow furrowed, distress crinkling her nose. Oh yes, it's so sad when we see one like that. Patience. Why is it so sad? Can we not help them? We can try. She gave me a sympathetic look that made her seem ages older than me. But often at that point, they have silenced their spiritual ears and can't hear us no matter what we do. Immense sadness and shame and guilt filed through me, and I turned my face away so she wouldn't see my emotional reaction. I knew I had been forgiven by the Father, but I would never be able to repair the souls I had crippled. What is your name? Daedrel asked. I'm Jez, I said. To the humans, Jessica. Be sure and find me later, Jessica, and we'll talk. I have an easier time getting to this plane than my own. She smiled, turned into a squirrel, and scampered away. I hurried to my history class, my thoughts dismal as I considered the harm I had done in the past 1,000 years and how there was no possible way for me to undo it. Logan came in and settled on my left side. You look a little glum, he said. I forced the emotion from my expression, trying to find a measure of peace within my soul. I did not want to attract any Temptere. I needed Malik. How I longed to feel the soothing touch of his aura at this moment. I'm fine. Mr. King started class. Logan opened his mouth to say more, but I inclined my head toward the teacher. We should pay attention. It will be a lot easier to study if we have the notes. Of course, Logan said. though the look he gave me wasn't as straightforward as his words. We separated for second hour, promising to meet up at lunchtime, and I went into my class. A few temptare lingered around the room, all of them hazy and drifting, searching for prey. They found one in the form of a boy sitting in the back. His aura displayed colors of anger and frustration on the second level, but the first level was a whitish gray, strong and healthy, until the temptare dove at him. They couldn't enter him because he hadn't given them permission to take his physical body. They whispered dark thoughts and stroked his hands and fingers, sending seedlings of despair and temptation to him. I watched the frustration change to anger, and the white glow of his aura turned to gray. He pulled out his phone and typed on the device, his fingers working over it furiously. I considered getting up and moving to sit beside him, but I knew from past experience that would draw attention from the rest of the class. What else could I do that would lift him from his mood and maybe get the temptare to leave him alone? Master Cassiel's words from my aura class filtered through my mind. A smile, a touch, a compliment, a note. The smallest things had a big impact on the human psyche. I pulled out a sheet of paper and wrote with my stilted, childish handwriting, "Hi, I like your eyes. Have a good day." I tilted my head and read over what I had written. Did that sound weird, like I was commanding him to have a good day? But I was certain I had heard humans say the expression to each other before. I revised, drawing a little arrow in front of have and writing in tiny letters, "Hope you." Then I signed my name at the bottom, Jessica, just as I had seen it written on a paper on Christine's refrigerator. Now to get it to him. He was 3 rows behind me and 2 desks over. A string of students ran between me and him. Hoping they were feeling helpful, I leaned to the one closest to me and whispered, "Can you pass this to that kid back there?" He looked at the paper in my hand and then over his shoulder at the boy. With a shrug, he took the paper. He didn't try to pass it to the kid nearest him, just stretched his arm way back and hissed, "Hey, Peters." Peters looked up and the kid tossed the paper at him. "Are you?" Peters took the paper, surprise flickering across his features. "From her," the kid said, bobbing his head toward me. Half the class was watching by now, so it wasn't quite the subtle experience I was hoping for. Peters' eyes drew to mine, curiosity in his gaze. Then he looked down at the paper I had sent his way. The corner of his mouth quirked upward when he read my note. He folded it up and put it in his backpack without looking at me. But his countenance lifted, some light returning to his aura. He tapped a few more things on his phone and put it away. The tempter slithered off, apparently deciding he was no longer easy prey. And I smiled to myself, relishing in my success. Maybe it was my note, or maybe it was the distraction of having the entire class looking at him, but I had gotten the demons off him. I was in good spirits as I made my way to the cafeteria. The boys didn't look at me, and Sophia gave me a head bob, while Dee Dee barely spared me a glance. I slid in across from Logan. "You ready to come over?" I asked as I unwrapped a candy bar. Jacob and Henry glanced at Logan without much interest, but Dee Dee honed in on him. "You're going to her house after school today?" We're going to study." Dee Dee looked at me and narrowed her eyes, and jealousy and annoyance flashed in her aura. "What subject? Maybe we could go to my house and study?" "I can't," I said, pausing to take a sip of water. "Christine doesn't like me going places where she doesn't know the parents." Dee Dee stuck her lower lip out. "That's too bad. Logan can come without you then." Logan looked at her. "I set this up." Surprise flashed across her face and she turned back to her drink, wordless. But she wasn't happy about this. I took a bite of my candy bar, feeling a bit uneasy. I'd wanted to pull Logan away from her, but I hadn't thought about the effect it would have on Dee Dee. Hopefully I wasn't causing any permanent damage. CD. I spotted Shasta and her 2 cohorts flirting with a big, hulky boy near the exit doors after school. All 4 of them looked pleased with each other, their auras flaring with red and yellow and green at once. But I didn't stick around to analyze them. Instead, I switched directions and took the other exit, then made the long walk to the front of the school. Logan's friends were in the parking lot, climbing into vehicles together. I glanced around but didn't see him. Maybe he'd forgotten? He said his house was close enough to walk to from school. I could catch up with him if he'd started for home, but which direction might he have gone? Christine's car pulled up, and I moved toward it, reluctant to leave Logan behind. I stepped up the passenger side and peered into the car. "Where's your friend?" Christine asked. "I'm not sure," I said. "He told me at lunch he was coming." Hadn't he? "Do you want to wait?" Christine asked. "Or use my phone to call him?" I shrugged. "I don't know." "Hey, Jessica." I turned around to see Logan approaching, backpack slung from one shoulder, squinting against the sunlight cutting across his face from the break in the trees. "There you are," I said, straightening. "I wasn't sure how to find you." He stopped by the car, and Christine leaned her head closer to the window. "It's Logan, right?" she said. He shot me a quick look and nodded. "Up in the back and we'll get out of here." He climbed in, his demeanor screaming uncertainty. "It's all right," I said, climbing into the front and swiveling around to talk to him. "Christine's a very safe driver." He gave a low guffaw. "I'm sure." "Tell me about yourself, Logan," Christine said, eyeing him in the mirror. He fiddled with the strap on his backpack and focused on the back of her chair. "Well, my eyes darted from his fingers, stroking and bending the fabric of the strap, to his face, a slight furrow between his brows as he studied the seat, then to his mouth, lips pursed as he tried to come up with an answer for her. In a flash of clarity, I realized I could read his body language. And he was definitely nervous. Chapter 25. I turned back to Christine. "Maybe we shouldn't ask Logan any questions." "No." She sounded amused. "All right then. I'll just turn the radio on and we won't talk." She flipped a dial and music flooded the car. I closed my eyes, letting the high voices and symphonic sounds wash over me. It reminded me of Shma at the academy. Christine pulled into the driveway beside the house and killed the engine. "A few rules, guys," she said, looking from me to Logan. "No going upstairs. Do your studying in the kitchen, the sitting room, or the living room. Got it?" "Yes," Logan said, all politeness. "No problem." "Sure," I said, though I wasn't sure why the sudden rules. "I made brownies. I'll bring them to you while you study." "That sounds great," Logan smiled. "Thanks, miss." He glanced at me, but Christine came to his rescue. "Negative." "Mrs. Maddox?" he echoed. Then we climbed out of the car and went into the house. "This is a cute place," he said, pausing next to the sitting room while Christine disappeared into the kitchen. "It's great, I like it." I led the way into the living room where I plopped down on the big pink bag, identical to the brown one in my room. I unzipped my backpack and emptied the contents onto the table. "You're a beanbag person, huh?" I stopped my movements and lifted an eyebrow. "Beanbag person?" He gestured to the bag I sat on. "You didn't hesitate. You went straight for the beanbag without thinking that I might want to sit there." My eyes widened. "The beanbag," I jumped up. "You can sit there." Logan laughed. "I'm teasing you, Jessica. I like beanbags too. Have a giant one in my house. We can both sit on it. You could try it when you come over." I tried to picture one big enough for 2 people. That must be big. Christine came into the living room with a plate full of little chocolate cakes. "Here you go, guys." "Thanks, Mrs. Maddox." Logan dug right in while I opened the computer and pulled up my history notes. "I highlighted this section as what Mr. King said we need to know for the exam," I said, turning the screen to show him. "Is that what you wanted to go over?" Logan pushed to the edge of the couch, getting closer to my side. "What I want to do is get to know you better." I faced him, relieved we were putting this out there now. "I was hoping for the chance to talk to you more, also." "Well, great. Maybe next time you can come to my house." "Christine said she would rather know your dad first, or trust me more." He rolled his eyes. "Work on the trust thing, 'cause my dad is never in town." I gestured to the notebook. "Did you want to study?" "Yeah, it can't hurt. It will look better anyway." He pulled out a notebook and pen. "Look better?" "For building trust, 'cause I said I was coming here to study." "Right," I frowned. "Was this a form of deceit?" "What's it like being a foster kid?" I shrugged. "It's kind of neat. I like Christine and Matt." "How many families have you lived with?" "Well, did one?" His eyebrows rose. "Did you just get taken away? Are you new to the system?" "Careful, Jez," I reminded myself. "He knows more about this system than you do." "Yes, the Maddox are my first family." "Where did you live before?" Unabashed curiosity colored his tone, though I sensed him trying to be sensitive. "A pale and rouge," I said, sticking to the story. "With my mom, I was homeschooled." Ugh. He nodded. "That explains so much." "Like what?" "Nothing." He waved it off. "Why were you taken away?" I hesitated and pulled at the ends of my hair. Had this ever been discussed? Christine and Matt didn't ask me about my real mom or life before them. Had Barakiel told them anything? I couldn't recall him telling me anything. Logan shook his head. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. That's too personal, isn't it?" He'd given me a reason not to answer, so I ran with it. "Yes." I grabbed up a brownie and stuffed it in my mouth before I said anything else. Logan picked up his pen again and slid my notebook to him, copying my notes. At least he didn't have a problem reading my handwriting. "What about you?" I asked, swallowing back the chocolate confection. "What's home like for you?" He shrugged and the first layer of his aura darkened. It hadn't been white to begin with, and the darkness influenced the colors of his second layer. I held my breath and glanced around the corners of the house, but no Temtare had entered. Perhaps they couldn't penetrate this sanctuary. "It's a place where I sleep and eat," Logan said. I could see what he didn't say. "But home isn't a happy place." "Do you say that?" Laura asked when he looked up from his note copying. He looked up from his note copying. "Because you don't look happy when you talk about it." He leaned back. "Everyone else thinks I'm one of the luckiest kids on earth. They just assume I'm happy." "I mean, aren't you? If I could find this out, I could find out why the Temtare wouldn't leave him alone." But he closed down, shutting me out. "I never said I'm not," he said, looking back at his paper and copying my notes. "Logan." I touched his hand, prompting him to look at me again. "You can trust me. I just want to help you be happy. And keep your soul from Sheol," I thought. He narrowed his eyes. "Why do you care? You barely know me." "I know you far better than you think," I said. "And I see the potential for great goodness in you. But you're warring against darkness." I squeezed his fingers. "I promise you, Logan, I'm not going to let the darkness win." The first layer of his aura lightened, lighter than it had been before, and my heart soared. I was getting through. "Hey, you want to go to the French market Friday after school? It's close to here. A bunch of us go every week," he said. "Sure," I said, happy for the chance to spend more time with Logan. Malik would be so pleased when he saw the progress I was making. Then I remembered Christine. "Oh, I have to consult with Christine first." "Consult?" Logan lifted an eyebrow. "Well, get permission. Let me ask her." Christine was in her bedroom folding laundry, but the TV wasn't on, which meant she had one ear pressed to me and Logan. Hopefully she'd built up enough trust in me. "Hi, Jess," she said as I sat on the bed beside her. "Everything going all right?" "Yes, better than all right," I beamed. "Can I go to the French market after school Friday? Logan and his friends will be there." "The French market?" Christine considered this. "Yes. But I'll take you there after school and pick you up when it closes at 6. "That sounds perfect. Thank you." I hurried from the room to let Logan know. He stayed a few hours more, long enough to get my notes and then sift through Christine's movie collection while he finished off the brownies. "You can stay for dinner, Logan," Christine said as he put his things away in his backpack. "Thanks. It's been awesome, but I don't want to wear out my welcome." He nodded at me. "I'll see you in school tomorrow." "You don't want to ride home?" Christine asked, following him to the door. "No, that's all right. I'll just catch the bus." "All right then. You're welcome over any time." "Thanks." Logan caught my eye and grinned, and then he was gone. "Well," Christine turned around and eyed me. "He's cute, and he seems nice enough. Just be careful, Jess." "I will be," I said. I had every intention of taking great care of Logan's soul. The smile Logan gave me the next morning in history warmed my chest. There was a lightness to his aura also, and I knew we'd made progress. I smiled back and settled into the seat beside him. Logan waited for me outside the cafeteria before lunch, and then we walked in together. Dee Dee spotted us from the table, and her eyes tracked us the whole way. "You guys look cozy," she said, red and green flaring in her aura. "Have a nice time studying." Her gaze swiveled toward me, and her words held an accusation. Sophia and the boys looked at us as if discovering something new. We did, thanks, I said. Christine made us brownies, and I shared my notes with Logan. Henry coughed into his hand, and Dee Dee looked even angrier. I'm sure that's all you shared with him, she said, her voice soft. Dee, Logan said, and his voice was not soft. Lay off. She flashed wide eyes at him, then she turned a sweet smile my direction. Oh, I found someone willing to take you to the spring formal. I explained your situation to him. Wait, you're trying to get a date to the formal? Logan asked, swiveling back to face me. I lifted a shoulder. I haven't given it much thought. Well, it wouldn't be fair if she didn't have a date, Dee Dee said. I bet it's hard for foster kids. They usually miss these kinds of activities. What makes you think she won't find someone? Logan said, and for some reason, anger vibrated in his aura. There was more to this spring formal thing than I'd realized, and I watched the exchange with growing unease. I would have to ask Dadrail. Oh, Logan, I'm just being nice. Foster kids never get the chance to socialize. They're kind of awkward that way. And this guy I found... Logan looked at me and quirked an eyebrow upward. Jessica, want to go to the spring formal with me? Dee Dee let out a soft gasp, and the other heads at the table swiveled toward me and then back toward Logan and then toward me again with sudden interest. An uneasy feeling crept up through the pit of my belly. I fiddled with the cap of my water bottle and said, What does that mean? Dee Dee looked furious, her face turning a shade of red, but Logan said, I would be your date. Just a date, I nodded. Great, Logan gave a big smile. We have lots of time to coordinate the details. And I'll see you tomorrow at the French market? I asked. Sophia leaned back in her chair, an amused expression on her face as she looked at me and Logan. Looks like Logan is making you a regular part of our group. Dee Dee picked up her tray and left the table. On Friday, Christine drove me over to the French market. She wouldn't drop me off at the beginning of the covered stalls, but drove around the exhibits until I spotted Logan and his friends. They were sitting inside at one of the tables eating beignets, and I almost didn't see them. That's them, I said, pointing. Christine stopped the car. I'll drop you off, but I'm not leaving until I see you go with them. I'll pick you up right back here in 2 hours. I nodded, pleased she had given me permission and eager to begin this experience. I hopped out of the car and slammed the door, then hurried over to them. Henry spotted me first and murmured to Logan, who looked over and waved. Jessica, you made it. He scooted over at the little round table and pulled over another metal chair. We weren't sure your foster mom would let you come, Sophia said, eyeing me. Oh, Christina's nice. She lets me do most things. Don't forget to consult with her about the spring formal, Logan said, giving me a teasing grin. Right. Why did I get so nervous when I thought about this upcoming event? Christine would know more about it, I was sure. She could help me. Ooh, maybe she'll say no to that, Dee Dee murmured. Sophia elbowed her. Nope, Christine likes me. Logan looped his arm around my shoulders. She'll let Jessica go with me. I'd been touched dozens of times since coming to Earth as a human girl. I couldn't feel the tactile touch of their bodies, other than a slight pressure that I suspected was their aura mixing with mine. Only once had that touch made me angry. And this was the first time it made me uncomfortable. I couldn't say why. I felt the pressure of his arm across my shoulders, and for some reason it felt heavy. I shrugged my shoulders, a quick up and down movement, and then I stood up, freeing myself. What do you guys do here? I asked, redirecting the conversation to get his attention off me. Walk around, eat, check out the vendors, Henry said. You're new here, Logan said. You might find something cool that reminds you of New Orleans. His fingers came up and twirled around the ends of my hair, wrapping them around his finger. With a bout of sudden clarity, I realized why I was uncomfortable. I realized why I felt uneasy. Logan was attracted to me. Heaven's throne, what was I supposed to do now? The girls stood up and wandered off, and I hurried to catch up with them. My heart pattered in the base of my neck as I wondered what in the sky I was going to do about this. We wandered the boots for an hour, then walked across the street and wandered through some of the shops. Jacob's phone dinged, and he pulled it out to study it. That's Alex, he said. He's waiting at the voodoo shop around the corner. We were meeting Alex? Why did I not know about this plan? As one, the girls put down the crocodile heads and sugar skulls they had been examining at a booth, and they joined with the boys who led the way out of the market. I stood still until Logan turned around and said, "Jessica, come on." I furrowed my brow and caught up to him. "Where are we going? I thought we were staying at the market." "We practically are, just going around the corner to the voodoo shop." "Who it's still part of the market?" I didn't have a choice but to keep up with them as they crossed the street. "No," I amended. "I always had a choice, but I didn't like my options." "Not technically, but the shops right here are kind of part of it." We went up another street and turned right. The temptare appeared out of nowhere, oozing out of walls and pooling up from puddles and out of shadows on the sidewalk. Alexander and his group of friends leaned against a corner, where it was so dark they almost looked like temptare themselves. One of them leaned over and whispered something to Alexander, and Alexander nodded. He pulled off the wall as our group arrived. "You got it?" he asked Logan. I turned to Logan, my jaw tightening in surprise. "I got it," Logan said, not glancing at me as he started to reach into his pants pocket. Alexander's hand shot out and snaked around his wrist. "Chife, no here," he hissed, glancing around. "Let's go." We were on the move again, the 4 of them and the 6 of us. Except now a horrible knot of dread formed in my stomach as we moved farther from the French market. Chapter 26. "Along," I grabbed his arm and pulled him to the back of the group. "What are you doing? Where are we going?" "Hey, it's no big deal, relax." He smiled and squeezed the back of my neck. "We're just going to meet a few friends. You'll be fine, I promise." Yet the undercurrent in his tone was not reassuring. It had more of the sleazy, bad boy quality to it that I'd heard when I first met him. His aura had also darkened, the first layer turning from white-gray to black-gray. The farther we got from the French market, the more the dread in my stomach grew. The shadows lengthened as the sun set, and I couldn't tell the temptera from darkness. I wanted to turn back as something like fear shuddered through my body, but I wasn't going to leave Logan. We stopped several blocks later outside of some sort of motel with a flashing neon sign that read, "Hourly rates available." I could feel the evil here. It was as familiar to me as my own name, but as unwanted as the chains that had once bound me. I wanted no part of this, and I wondered how I could get Logan out of here. Alexander and his friends settled along the wall in various places. "What are you doing?" Logan asked. "We're waiting." Alexander's eyes swept over us and focused on Jacob. "Are the girls wanting in also?" "No," Jacob said, and he moved slightly, almost as if shielding us from Alexander's view. The motion was subtle, but I saw it. Didi pulled out her phone and checked it, her aura also radiating uneasiness. "I think Sophia and I are going to head, guys." Alexander nodded. "They should go. We'll catch you at school Monday." Henry offered both girls a hug. "Come on, Jess," Sophia said. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Back to the market where we parked our cars," Didi said. I took one step in their direction and then hesitated. I very much wanted to escape this place and the evil percolating the air around us. Christine would be there soon, and I didn't want to break the fragile trust she had put in me by not being where I said I would be. I looked at Logan. "It's fine," he said. "I'll give you a call later." With that one statement, my desire to leave faded. Christine would have to be mad at me. I wasn't leaving Logan here by himself. "I'll stay," I said. You said, "You should go." I set my jaw. "I'm not leaving you." He flashed me a smile that made my insides squirm. It wasn't what he thought, but I didn't know how to explain that to him. "Suit yourself," Didi said with a shrug. She hooked on arm through Sophia's, and the 2 of them marched off, heads bent together. Logan turned to Alexander. "Can she stay?" He shook his head very slowly, pulling on his earlobe and eyeing me. "It's not a good idea, unless she's willing to get in." Logan nudged me. "This isn't a place for girls. Catch up with Didi and Soph." I squared my jaw and focused on Alexander. "If I go, Logan goes," I said. "Jess," Logan said, lowering his voice and pulling me to the side. "You don't know what's going on here." "It's not safe for you," I hissed. "Besides, the girls are gone. I can't wander back to the French market by myself. I don't know how to get there." Logan peered behind me into the darkened street, then shook his head. "She can't go." "You think she's better off here than out there?" Alexander said with a mocking laugh. "You sure you know what you're getting into?" Logan threw me an uneasy look, then grabbed my arm and pulled me against his body. Stay nearby. We drifted into a silence that grew thicker and slimier with each minute, and I became more anxious as we waited. I tugged on Logan's arm. Logan, let's just go. Logan looked at me, and doubt showed on his face. He glanced over at Henry and Jacob, the same worry reflected on Henry's face, but Jacob didn't meet his eyes. Then Alexander said, "Chickening out because of a girl, are you?" I turned irate eyes on Alexander, tempted to summon a sudden wind to clap him in the head. But then I saw the temptere lurking around corners, smelling us out, and I knew I'd be giving away what I was. I had an advantage right now, and I needed to maintain it. Ignoring Alexander, I swiveled to face Logan. "Whatever it is you're planning to do, you don't have to," I said, pleading. "This is your chance." I squeezed his hand, my heart thumping loudly in my chest. If he walked away now, he stood a better chance of withstanding whatever danger was in store for him later. I wished he could feel how important this moment was. Maybe he did, but he wasn't the only one. The tempter swooped in, settling on his shoulders and hunching around his ears, whispering, murmuring, and promising and caressing. I couldn't hear them. His temptations were for him alone. But I could imagine what they were saying. "Come on, man." Alexander pushed off the wall and placed a hand on Logan's shoulder. "You're so close to being in—" "You don't need this," I said, trying to hold his attention. But I didn't have as much sway as Alexander, who was far worse than the tempter. Logan pushed my hands away, annoyed. "You don't know anything. You didn't have to stay." His attitude toward me had changed, and I withdrew. Anger slashed through me that I didn't have a dagger. It was my own fault, but I could dispatch with these temptare right here and now. But a small voice told me it wouldn't help. Until Logan made his own decision, he would be faced with this temptation over and over again. "Sebastian's here," one of Alexander's friends said, and Alexander looked at attention, pushing away from the wall and straightening. I turned when Logan did, and 3 other guys in hoodies approached. They didn't look like teenagers, and they were so shrouded in darkness that they had no need for tempter. They had already made their decisions. My eyes honed in on the tallest of them, of their own accord, a small tremor rippling through my body. Something about him had my insides churning with alarm. Alexander jerked his chin at Logan. Fear spiked in Logan's aura, and he stepped forward. The tall newcomer also stepped forward, his eyes glinting beneath the hood as he studied Logan. He sucked on a cigarette, the butt sparking red for a moment before he exhaled a puff of smoke. "This must be Sebastian." "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Logan," he said, his attempt at sounding confident failing. The guy's sneer was obvious even under the hoodie. "We have no Logans in the Brotherhood." The 2 behind him laughed and stared down at Logan. Logan didn't stir, though Henry and Jacob exchanged uneasy glances. "We all want in," Jacob said, shooting an uneasy glance toward his brother. "Give us a chance." Alexander shrugged and looked back at Logan. "Show him what you got." Logan's hand trembled as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. Sebastian nodded. "So you have funds. Can you deliver?" "This is my 3rd delivery," Logan said, and now his voice had that assuredness he'd probably been looking for earlier. "I can do this." Alexander murmured, "He's proved useful so far." The tempter screamed in Logan's ears, and I clenched my fists. "And them?" The dude looked at Henry and Jacob. "Jacob's my brother," Alexander said, and for the first time I noticed the rippling of unease in his aura. "He knows the rights as well as I do. He'll do whatever is necessary." "Fine," Sebastian sucked on his cigarette again. "And you want in too, kid?" He stared down at Henry. "Yes," Henry said, his voice quaking. "And what about her?" Sebastian's eyes slid over to me. "He doesn't want in," Logan said, and in spite of the darkness surrounding him, a protective note entered his voice. I looked at him, surprised. How could he be thinking about protecting me? I was here to protect him. "We have need of women in the Brotherhood also," Sebastian said, and I knew the stench of ill intent anywhere. It did not appeal to me in the least. "No," Logan said, quite harshly. "Then make sure she doesn't come next time," Sebastian said. "Wouldn't want to get the wrong impression." He pocketed Logan's cash. Follow through and we'll consider you for initiation. Just you. His eyes flicked to Jacob and Henry. Your friends gotta pull their own weight. His didn't take his gaze from Logan. You're going to need a new name. I'll call you Fresh. Alexander and his friends laughed, a harsh, grating sound, but I felt a shiver of premonition. A new name, a mockery of the ones the angels received when they arrived in Gehenna. The new names were sacred and meaningful and powerful. The fear that rippled through me was so intense I whirled around, half expecting to see Hasatan himself standing in flames behind me, ready to torture me for my disobedience. It couldn't be. It had to be a coincidence, his use of the term. None of these boys could be in league with Hasatan. Logan smiled at their laughter, though he looked perplexed. Fresh? Yeah, for fresh meat. Sebastian took another puff on the cigarette and then flicked it to the curb. You do the deed, and I'll give you a new name. His words and mockery shuddered through me. I took a few deep breaths to curb my desire to gouge this guy's eyes out. It wouldn't look good on my probationary record. You can expect to hear from me, Sebastian said. He turned and glided down the street, vanishing into the shadows with his cronies. You passed so far, Alexander said, his confidence back in full force. He offered his knuckles to Logan, who pressed his own against them. Be ready. He looked at Jacob. We have work to do if you hope to initiate. Be ready for what? I didn't dare ask, and Alexander did not elucidate. He and his group also disappeared into the darkness, leaving me with Logan and his two friends. Henry swore and then patted down his pants. That was frickin' ridiculous. More disrespectful expletives colored his language. I need a smoke, can't find a cig. I've got one. Jacob pulled a cigarette from his pocket. His expression was calm, almost void of emotion, but his aura spiked bright yellow and green. Henry took it, hands shaking. Got a light? It went well, Jacob said, holding a lighter out for Henry. You're practically in the group. Logan nodded and checked his phone. He looked at me, some of the hardness coming out of his eyes. Christine called my phone, a couple of times. Oh, Christine. I closed my eyes, feeling a flash of guilt. Can I call her back? He held the phone out to me, but when I took it, he didn't relinquish it. I'm hoping I can trust you, Jessica. I frowned at him, not liking the undercurrent of a threat I heard in his voice. You can. Did he think I was going to tell Christine? So that she could do what? I knew if I was going to help Logan, it would be through a genuine effort of caring and friendship, not because I sicked him with an authority figure. I was well versed in the ways of darkness and deception. I knew what actions would push someone to pursue the wrong path. His features relaxed and he let go of the phone. Do you want me to call her? I'll tell her I can take you home. I shook my head as the phone rang in my ear. I need to apologize for my actions. Let's at least head back to the market so she's not so angry. Logan bobbed his head at Henry and Jacob and they nodded back. Then he shoved his hands in his jeans pockets and walked down the sidewalk. I followed behind, the phone still ringing. Christine's breathless voice picked up. Logan? She sounded frantic, but like she was trying not to be. It's Jessica. Jessica, where are you? I'd never heard her so stern or emphatic. I'm near the French market. I'm sorry, went for a walk. I told you I would pick you up at 6. I made it quite clear you cannot disappear like that. I'm sorry, I repeated. I didn't realize how far we'd gone and I didn't know the time. It's after 7, Jessica. Do you know how close I was to calling the police? Do you know they'll take you away from me if I do? Her voice caught with human emotion, and I marveled that I could detect it through the phone without being in her presence. I knew Barakiel would not remove me from her house. She, however, did not. The guilt doubled in me for putting her through that, and a sudden urge to cry nearly overwhelmed me. At the same time, I felt a surge of triumph. I felt the desire to cry because I understood her pain. I was coming closer to understanding human reaction. Tell her I can take you home, Logan said. We're almost to my car. I parroted his words back to her. Logan said he can bring me home. Absolutely not. You stay right where I dropped you off. I will be there in 5 minutes, and I am not leaving until you are in my car. I glanced around the buildings as we walked. It will take me longer than 5 minutes to get there. I'll wait. And Jessica, this doesn't bode well for your social future. I'm just going to tell you that right now. There was a lot in that sentence I did not understand. Okay was all I said. I hung up and handed the phone back to Logan. So, how did that go? He sounded uncertain. She's pretty upset, I said. I think I've lost her trust, and she was afraid I would be taken away. But you don't sound upset. I shrugged. It means a lot to me that she cares so much, but I knew I wasn't in danger, and I know they're not going to take me away from her. The darkness still hovered around Logan, but he managed to give me an amused look. How can you know that? I know they want me to be with her, so that's where I'll stay. There's something about you that is so odd. He reached a hand out and stuck a strand of my hair behind my ear. Yet for some reason, it just makes me like you more. My face warmed and I turned away from his gaze. Heaven's throne, I had caused some kind of problem now. Christine's little car idled in front of the closed French market. Logan walked me to the door and opened it for me, then went around to Christine's side. She rolled her window down, though she seemed reluctant to do so. Sorry about the trouble, Mrs. Maddox. I lost track of time. Good night, Logan, Christine said evenly, not acknowledging his apology. He nodded and backed away. I waited for Christine to yell at me or something during the 5-minute drive from the market to her house, but she did not. She parked the car and said, "Please go and sit at the kitchen table." It wasn't a request, but even if it had been, I was not inclined to deny her. I slipped out of the car first and then went and sat at the table, interlocking my fingers and waiting for her to come in. She took a moment longer than I expected, and I wondered what she'd been doing in the car when she finally stepped inside. She sat down across from me and still didn't say anything, her eyes studying the wood grain and not looking at me. I remained silent also. She lifted her eyes. Jessica, do you know what you did wrong? I nodded. I promised you I wouldn't leave the market, and I promised that I would be there at 6 o'clock for you to pick me up. Surprise flickered in her eyes, and she also bobbed her head. So what happened? Why were you not there? We went for a walk. My friends told me it was still part of the French market, so I didn't realize I was breaking the rules. I also didn't know what time it was. When I found out, we were too far away for me to hurry back to meet you. I hear truth in your statement, Jessica, but I also hear deceit. You do not know the area, so I do believe you didn't realize how far away from the market you were going. Possibly you thought at first you were still at the market, but you're smart enough to realize at some point you were not. My face warmed. No wonder the Temptare never got anywhere with her. She could discern truth from a lie. You don't have a phone or a watch, so time could have slipped away from you. However, you knew that I was coming back at 6. You could have checked one of your friends' phones and made sure you were headed back that direction. Furthermore, the moment you realized you were not going to make it in time, you could have called me and told me. Yes, I said, you're right. Duh, Jessica, I was worried sick. You just cost me 10 years of my life. I didn't think it was like you to disappear without telling me, and I was certain something terrible had happened to you. While a simple phone call might not have gotten you out of trouble, it would have eased my heart. I nodded along with everything she said. You're right, I wasn't thinking. Christine folded her fingers together and stared hard at me. Where did you guys go? I don't know. Down the street. Was there any drinking? Ugh. Any drugs? Smoking? This was an important question, and it was important I relay my answer correctly. No drugs. We saw people smoking, but not us. Not me or Logan, anyway. Christine studied me, and I could imagine her as an archangel. She could pry the truth out of someone just by looking at them. Are you sure you can trust Logan? It makes me nervous that he took you away from the French market. Well, he didn't know I was supposed to stay there, and we didn't go anywhere else. We didn't get in the car and leave. It's not his fault I wasn't there. Christine leaned back in her chair and sighed. I suppose you're right. The burden lies with you. Next time I'll make sure Logan knows what's expected as well. At least there would be a next time.